Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Daniel Umstead, host of the RNG radio show. I got another amazing guest here today. So please pull out your pens, your notepads. You're going to be wanting to take some information down. But first, let me get started with the bio. She is an award-winning high-performance trauma-informed coach and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and the founder of crownyourself.com. She has been helping visionary leaders transform their self-limiting stories, building their empires, standing out fearlessly, and making the income and impact that they deserve. From her entrepreneurial beginnings at 5, selling bags of glitter water to her neighbors, which I'm going to see how much they run for now, to becoming an award-winning screenwriter, certified Pilates instructor, Miss Congeniality, and 6-time WEGO Health Activist Award nominee. She is proof that it's better to make your own mold than to conform to someone else's. She is also the former executive of a national e-commerce startup and was the owner of the private Pilates studio, Fitness with Kim, in Los Angeles, California. Her work has been featured in numerous places. I'm just going to name a few: Netflix, CW, ESPN, Chicken Soup for the Soul, NPR, Thrive Global, CNBC, Forbes, and now the RNG radio show. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I bring to you Kimberly Spencer. Kimberly, how are you doing today? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, nope, that's fine. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Kimberly Spencer.
Daniel, thank you so much for the introduction. And this is the first podcast that I'm recording in my new home. So I'm really excited to be here with you. You're like breaking the new ground.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Always a blessing. So, Kimberly, I want to get started. You said trauma-informed coach. You've been on multiple platforms. Tell me your story. How did you get started with everything?
So I was fortunate to be blessed with growing up with 2 entrepreneur parents. So I saw my family build a business from nothing into a multi-million-dollar business, despite the fact that my dad was an addict for a majority of my lifetime. And I saw that. So I saw that fortitude. I mean, my mom was pushing me around in the stroller, like passing out flyers for their tree business. And it was with that the entrepreneurial gene just kind of was like passed down to me, thus the bags of glitter water. And, and I was blessed that with my parents, they always believed in whatever it was that I was always a go-getter. I've always been a high achiever. That's just been my natural state. And at first, my passion, because growing up in Los Angeles, that was where I thought the only industry that I saw that you could make the income and the impact that I wanted to make was in Hollywood. And that's why I started my career path straight out of high school, interning, working production jobs, working as different assistants and whatnot. And I ended up landing my first feature film screenplay. And simultaneously, to support myself, I found Pilates, and that was how I built my Pilates business. As initially a side hustle, but it kind of turned out to be the main thing, because I realized the through line through both industries was that I was transforming people's stories. It was just in different mediums. So as a screenwriter, I was writing movies that created, that stimulated transformation. I do know that the feature film that I wrote, Bro, actually has transformed 3 people's lives to this point, like literally saved their life. And which is, when you see it, most people are like, really? That movie? And I'm like, actually, yes. There's a lot of like drugs and guns and Danny Trejo, basically, but it has. And simultaneously through Pilates, I also was transforming people's stories through what was possible for their bodies. Because I did the same for me, because I had been an exercise-induced asthmatic and bulimic, hated my body, and found the process of Pilates that actually allowed for me to transform. And from what I realized coaching hundreds of people on their bodies was that it was never about, whether they were technically fat or technically thin, or whether they ate right or not. What really mattered was how they perceived their bodies. And that was where I got first introduced to the concept of mindset, because I was surrounded by so many different belief systems, which also allowed me to question my own belief system. Because growing up with an addict, while I was blessed to see the entrepreneur side, the addict side always had me thinking that I was a victim, that was broken and that I was damaged and that I was always going to be that way. And through teaching, I started to be exposed, my environment changed. So I started to question my own story that I was telling myself of being broken, damaged, and a victim. And because I started questioning that, suddenly my relationship with my body started to change. My romantic relationship started to change. And I started attracting and magnetizing different things into my life instead of the pain and the blame and the shame that I had held on for so many years. So because of that, after my first feature film got produced and distributed, I was there at the premiere and I was like, this is like lifelong dream. And I'm at 24 and I was only about 90% fulfilled. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something more. So I had the opportunity simultaneously to come on as an e-commerce, as the president of an e-commerce startup, because of my fitness background. And because also the partner that I was going to be partnering with also was retiring from the movie industry. So we had that simpatico of also having that entrepreneur drive. And so I poured myself into this company. We got, featured in New York Times billboard, like in Times Square and in major magazines. And I pitched it to the first round of Shark Tank auditions and we were seeking venture capital. And I was like, I was on this high and struggling with, some values-based differences with my partner and decision-making differences, which created a lot of friction and a lot of stress for me. And because of that, 3 months before I was supposed to get married, my business partner told me he wanted to buy me out and that I was out of the company. And I was shocked, hit me like a sledgehammer out of left field. And for 3 months, we went through the buyout process, trying to negotiate. I tried to keep the company and it just ended up like 3 weeks before I got married. I signed the buyout deal and went off on my honeymoon and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because I'd followed my curiosity through screenwriting, through Pilates, through e-commerce. And I was like, I have all these varied skills in very different areas. And I'd accomplished things like I'd achieved success in my body. I'd achieved success in finding the amazing man of my dreams, my husband and sexy baby daddy. And and I'd had success in business, but I didn't feel successful because I felt so much shame and failure from that buyout deal and from dealing with lawyers who don't send you the nicest emails when they're not on your side. And so I was on my honeymoon and it was there that I was brainstorming like you do with my husband. And I had probably way too many espresso shots. And I had said, because we were in Italy, and I said,
I'm jealous. I'm just jealous right now. But go ahead. Yes, please continue.
And so we were there and I was looking at all these different areas and I leaped off the couch and I said, crown yourself. And my husband's like, what's that? And I said, that's the name of my company. He said, well, great. What do you do? I said, I don't know. Something like Marie Forleo. So I immediately went to work in what I call productive procrastination, where I was doing all the things to make a business really pretty and really like Instagrammable, but I made no money for a year and a half because I was living and operating from a mindset that was very similar and very familiar to me because I'd overcome it with bulimia, what I call financial bulimia or business bulimia, where I was expending a lot of energy into things that didn't matter, into consuming things in strategies that didn't work for me, that weren't working for my body, weren't working for my business, and putting a lot of energy outside of me instead of looking inside of me for the answers that had already made me successful. And once I switched that, which I happened to switch because I found out I was pregnant and I was like, I got a 9-month deadline to figure this out. That was when I changed everything and my business took off.
Wow. Just amazing, amazing, amazing. Before we get to talking about crownyourself.com, for the glitter water bags at the age of 5, how much were you selling these glitter water bags for?
I was split testing price points actually for 5 cents or $50.
Okay.
No one purchased at 50, let's just say that.
I gotcha. But hey, listen, to figure out like, if the markup is this, so.
Well, the market, I mean, it was a hot day in LA and the concept behind glitter water was obviously you don't drink it because back in the early 90s, there wasn't edible glitter. So it was literally plastic bags of water with glitter in it because I thought people would like to glisten when they're so sweaty and hot. And then, you have glitter on you. So you might want to pour it on you. So that was the thought. Didn't make a lot of sales, but I learned the value of split testing price points.
All right. So if anybody is starting any type of glitter water business, they need to be talking to you first. So
Exactly.
I
I've
love
already
it.
done the market research. About 35 years old, but
I got enough to help you out. So no, I'm with you. Now, I'm opening up my webpage. I go to crownyourself.com. There is so much on there. I mean, between your media, what you've done for others, what you even done for yourself. What should one be looking for once they get started and they go to the website?
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for, if you're looking for more information, more resources, mindset shifts, belief perspective shift, then definitely go over to Crown Yourself, hit the blog, hit our podcast, or hit on Queen TV, our YouTube channel, so that you can look at all the belief paradigm shifts that and all the techniques and strategies that I do to shift your mindset and transform your business set at the same time. But if you're looking for actually deep diving and like going in the nitty gritty of your business and how to up level and quantum leap, then just hit the button that says work with me and then we'll have a conversation.
I love that. I love that. And you've worked with so many people. I mean, helping people, with their weight problems, their body perspectives, done the screenplays, been featured everywhere. Throughout it all, what has been your greatest success story?
My kids.
Okay. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
I mean,
love that.
they are, I've worked with some extraordinary coaches that have helped me up level and challenge my mindset, shift my perspectives, improve my business. But I live with my two greatest coaches, which are my 1-year-old and my 5-year-old, because they are direct mirrors of me. And I got to work on myself every single day because they're with me every single day. And so I'm able to see that reflection of how I can grow and shift and change. And I apply the principles of conscious parenting as well as conscious entrepreneurship.
Okay. Love that. Love that. And we have our ups and downs. We have the days that it's like, why is this happening? Or, everything is beginning to no. Either appointment got canceled or things going right in the business. Outside of your two amazing individuals that you live with and the sexy baby daddy, what keeps you motivated on a day-to-day when you do have those troublesome days?
It's definitely exercise. Like I am a much more balanced human when I have my exercise, and with what I take is what I call my meds, my meditation, my exercise, my diet, and my sleep. When those 4 pieces are on point, I am operating on a much higher caliber and a much higher level of performance than if my sleep is off. And, obviously as a mom of a 18-month-old, like there's some times that sleep gets off and whatnot, and that's fine, and you honor where you're at. But if you can balance out with, like for me, I do transcendental meditation. I try to do two times a day. I typically just get in 1. But that is like a daily reset for me. That is a necessity for being able to reset my energy. I also do 2 forms of exercise. So I do running and long distance running. But I counterbalance that by activating my parasympathetic nervous system with Pilates. So I still practice Pilates. I've been doing that for almost 2 decades now. But Pilates, what I didn't know that I was doing that I know now, and why it's so helpful is because it's activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which allows for me to deregulate from the stress of those days where things just feel like everything's going off. And it's the regular practice of Pilates. And you can do Pilates, yoga, and Qigong. Those are the 3 forms of exercise that actively exercise your parasympathetic nervous system, because you're exhaling as you're exercising longer than you're inhaling. So because of that, it's allowing your nervous system to practice that deregulation, which is necessary for cultivating resilience, both in your body and as an entrepreneur.
Wow. Thank you. I'm like, I know folks can't see it. They're not supposed to see it. But I'm just taking notes as you're going along. So thank you for that. Now, you've got some courses, as well as a #1 bestseller, The Start. In addition to the courses in the book. What other books would you recommend for somebody who's looking for self-help? Because I know I balance between being an introvert and extrovert, and some people are just straight down the line introverts, don't want to talk to anybody, and it's like, just give me the information, I'll work on it on my own. So outside of them picking up your book, The Start, what other books would you maybe recommend for somebody that has helped you or even helped others along the way with self-help?
Yeah, I too balance between introversion and extroversion. So for those introverts and for those readers and learners, like whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I think learning is an essential necessity for entrepreneurship growth, because any business is like personal development on steroids. Like the two things that are personal development on steroids is parenting and business and owning your own business. And because the business is constantly a reflection of where you're at and with your mindset and your skill set. So always choosing to up level your skill set is essential. The two books like that have transformed my life. The first one is The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership by Jim Dethmar and Diana Chapman. It was written by the Conscious Leadership Group. It is the greatest, most simplistic way of breaking down the principles of developing a leadership mindset that allows you to constantly grow and evolve. The second book that I would highly recommend for personal development is Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was my first personal development book that I ever picked up, that I was actually recommended by my acting teacher when I was 17 years old. I remember reading it, and there was a piece in it that was like, you are at cause for your emotional state. And I was like, wait, what? Because I growing up in a home with an addict, everything's reactionary. It's like fire over here, fire over there. So I always thought that like my emotional reactions were a byproduct of my environment. I like the fact that I could have control over that, or like agency. I'm not so much a fan of the word control because I used to be a recovering control freak, but agency, the ability to adapt, the ability to pivot, like that was just mind blowing for me at 17. The idea that I actually had and that agency to be able to navigate my own emotions, and then combining that with the principles of conscious leadership. The first principle is basically, are you in a to me or a for me? So is everything happening to you, the victim state, everything you're impacted by external circumstances, or is everything happening for you? And thus, if everything's happening for you, then you take that emotional state, you start asking the questions of, how is this actually the best thing that ever happened to me? Like that's one of my favorite questions to ask at anything. And it can be a really challenging question if you're going through some really hard stuff. Like when I lost my father, my aunt, my grandma, and 2 family friends in the past year, like that was a very challenging question to ask myself of like, how is actually this the best thing that ever happened to me? Because it can feel selfish. You can bring up guilt, it can bring up shame. But once you go through those negative emotions, you can actually find those beautiful crown jewels and nuggets of transformation and growth that can come from it. And so for one of the things for me that came from losing my father was I was able to find, I have a better relationship with him than I ever did. Just knowing that he's on the other side looking out for me. And the human form of the addict that I struggled with for so long, that's gone, and those demons are gone, and he's free of that. That's huge for me. But I also feel this like depth of peace and love and connection. And there's been a freedom in my writing and freedom of expression that's come out that's just been a different level. And I've talked to many other entrepreneurs who have lost a parent, and they said, yeah, their writing, their communication, their presence, it shifted just a bit deeper because of not only the loss, but also the freedom and permission to fully be yourself. Because no longer is there that parent that has been the guide, but now you get to be the leader and the guide. And so it's a really powerful transition, but it came from having these mindset principles of how is everything being in charge of my emotional state and in command of my emotional state, and the principles of conscious leadership. If you're looking for a business book, though, I'd always recommend Traction by Gino Wickman. Traction by Gino Wickman, Exponential Organizations by Salim Ismail, and Profit First by Mike Malkowitz. Profit First revolutionized my business. That was how we increased our profit 300% in 2020. The exponential organizations gave me a completely different way of thinking about my business. One of the big, and it allowed me to see some of the challenges that I didn't want to embrace, that were like, this is how you do business. And I was like, I actually don't want to do it that way. And it gave me permission in some ways to keep doing business as I do it. And Gina Wickman's Traction really provides a framework for looking at your business as the visionary leader, and gives you the process of how to break that down, and just so that you just have that traction, so you're able to roll with it and grow. And those are my top three.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, audience, if you're listening, taking notes, you need to feel free to rewind. I know I got a page full of stuff to go through. I might need to call out the rest of the day, but I'm not. I don't plan on doing so. I want to show the ugly side. You talked about the buyout deal. When specifically, working with a past client, what has been like your biggest lesson? What did you take from a conversation that didn't work out so well, or maybe even helping somebody that they came back and, they pretty much came against you? I've had it with my resume writing business, been doing it for 15 years, and I still get those folks who are like, they come across, for the majority, they're like, oh my gosh, you did a great job. But I will have that one that's like, this isn't what I was looking for, or how do you even do this? And it's like, what? Coming against me. So a part of me needs to be humble and take it in. From your perspective, and you've been doing this for so long, what has been your biggest lesson, coming across that, not so great client that didn't appreciate what you had to offer them?
So I've had a few of those, but I do my best in the vetting process to really be selective with who I choose. One of my clients, who's a very good friend of mine, and now she and I struggled during the time because she was processing a lot of guilt and negative emotions, and this was projecting it onto me throughout the coaching. And that was where I had to call her out. And it's an uncomfortable conversation when you need to do that. But for me, I said, look, like, we can continue with this blame game of you blaming me for whatever stuff, but you're not fully showing up for yourself. And it's my job and why you paid me to call you out on that. And if you're choosing not to show up fully for yourself and for this investment that you made, then that's your choice, but that's not my problem. I am continuing to show up 100% for you, always here. And I just reiterate where the boundary line of responsibility, because a lot of time what happens is that's where people miss the mark of responsibility as to where that boundary line gets drawn. Each of you in any relationship, whether it's romantic, business, transactional, is required to have 100% responsibility for your actions. So of course, I checked in with myself. I said, okay, what could I improve of my services? How could I improve the coaching process? How could I make it easier? How could I be more responsive? Is there anything else that I could have done? I always will go through the questions and look at myself first. I also will always look at the questions of like, okay, how is the other person not showing up fully for themselves? How are they missing the mark on their communication? How are they, where is their responsibility? And then I hold them to their commitment for their own responsibility. That's my job as a coach. When I started my podcast guesting agency, Communication Queens, that was where I learned some really powerful lessons this past year, because we launched it in July. And what I saw where the times that I had troubles with clients was when a client was newer in their business, and thus they had a perception of how their brand was being perceived. And that's not really how their brand was being perceived, because being on the receiving end of seeing their brand as we're like booking them to get them booked on podcasts that are a strategic match for them, I would see like, oh, this is how you're showing up in your messaging, in your marketing. So this is what you're going for. And then if they couldn't see that as part of their brand, then then there was a disconnect and it didn't work out. And I would just like, for me, that's where, if there's a disconnect in that, that's where we have a deeper conversation as to like, if it's an aligned fit. Because sometimes you think your brand is a certain way, but as the leader of your brand, as the leader of your business, if other people are seeing it differently, that's where you need to have the cognizance and awareness as a leader to be able to question, okay, am I really showing up in this effective way that's a reflection of my business and brand? So for example, one of my clients didn't see herself as working with a lot of coaches or new coaches. And I said, well, that's a predominant area of your video marketing. And because she couldn't see herself as calling out coaches, and that was like kind of what her marketing and messaging was doing, was calling out coaches for not being properly trained. I said, well, that's a polarizing perspective, but do you want your brand to be around that when you think your brand is this? Right. And so when there's an incongruence, the fastest way you can evolve as a business owner is when you notice your own incongruences. Why I made no money for my first year and a half in business with Crown Yourself was because I was completely incongruent with the values that I was saying Crown Yourself was all about. I was between 2014, when I came up with the concept of Crown Yourself, in 2016, I was complaining, blaming my former business partner for my financial hardships, for my challenges with business, for why my business wasn't getting off the ground. I was constantly in a space of shame. I was in a space of productive procrastination, but I was preaching, and I had all these great photo shoots of like, crown yourself and ownership and like feeling like the queen and feeling confident. And meanwhile, I felt so sucky inside that I wasn't an active reflection of what I was promoting. And thus, when I would get on and like message outside of my own like photo branding, the messaging would be incongruent and I wasn't attracting the right people who I wanted to work with. And I was attracting people who were in a very similar state where they were blaming themselves or blaming others in a victim state, complaining and shaming, and thus they weren't wanting to actually move the needle. They actually were wanting to be coddled. And that's where, as a leader, especially if you're in the coaching industry, the internal work that you do on a daily basis is a requirement in order to have success.
Wow. Thank you. Like I said, I'm probably going to get some hand cramps later because I've just been writing like crazy, like, oh my gosh, and oh my gosh, and oh my gosh. So with the businesses are running where I'm headed, I'm like, this is just gold information for me. I want to know, throughout your success, and I know you've run into other coaches and seen their perspective, how would you say you differ yourself from other coaches?
I use, for one, I follow a methodology. So a lot of coaches kind of coach based on the day, based on, how's it going? Where are we at with your progress? Meanwhile, I coach based on a methodology. I have the certified high performance curriculum. I have used the NLP process in my coaching. And I also have my Queen Bee business transformation process. So every session, whether my client has made progress or not, whether they've kept their commitments or achieved every single one of their goals that they have set for themselves the past week, we're making progress on a specific topic. So like we're dealing with mindset one week, or your skill set another week, or your systems in your business, or your mental systems of how your system is in the family unit is supporting your own business, because those are all pieces that go together and support each other. Like we don't operate our businesses inside of a vacuum. And I think the more we recognize that success is holistic, that's when we actually have the fulfillment that we actually are chasing. And so I approach it from a top-down approach of like, I ask questions. I use probing questions for conversation. I challenge a lot. I push my clients. I literally eat challenge for breakfast. And I've done that ever since I was a Pilates instructor, as I was always the instructor who'd be like, all right, You said your goal was 10. I'm going to challenge you to do 10 more. So you think you're going to do 20 sales calls this week, you're going to do 30. And so I will always push for that extra 10. But beyond that, I also work from a somatic approach as well. I use my Pilates background, and I'm trained in biodynamic breath work and trauma release. So I use that somatic approach as well because your body is the domain of your subconscious mind. And so often your body will know if something is true for you or right for you before your brain does. Because your brain will be saying, oh, well, this is what this coach is doing, and I should probably do that. Or this is what this person says I should be doing, and I should be focusing on, and I should have my 10-step habits and all this. But I actually feel like I'm really good with just like focusing on one priority at a time. So it's your body will have a resonance with what is true and right for you, which is why I take all of my methodologies and processes and I apply them specifically to my client of what they need, not what I think, not how they can fit into my process, but how my process can fit into how their success to unlocking their own success system within themselves. So I do a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach in essence.
I love that. No. I love that. And it's true, most of the coaches really just have this manual that they've either Googled or researched online. But I like it's really that hands-on and holding people accountable. I think that's the biggest thing that I think some of these coaches out here are missing the mark on, is not going back on their clients and saying like, hey, you said you wanted to do this, so let's work to get you here. So I appreciate that. And I'm hoping folks, take that opportunity, go to crownyourself.com and book that session with you so they can get head in the right direction. You did a TED Talk back in late 2021 titled Becoming a Warrior for Possibility, and you talk about decide. Can you elaborate more on that?
So deciding is one of my favorite things, and it's one of the things that most leaders and people are not taught to do. We are taught to want, we are taught, what we would like. We ruminate on what we should be doing, but ultimately deciding is what creates progress. So when you make a decision, the actual word to decide, as I said in my TED Talk, it means to kill or cut off. Side, that's what it is, to kill or cut off. So you kill or cut off any other possibility to something. So what possibilities could you be cutting off to? Well, a lot of self-sabotaging beliefs are like, oh, well, the fear of success. Let's say that's an example. So if you make a decision that you're going to have your $1 million year this year, and you're at the place where you're like, yeah, that's statistically probable, it's highly likely, I've built up enough traction, etc. But you come to that barrier where suddenly you catch yourself like avoiding things, and then you're like, oh, maybe I won't call them back today. I'll just or you find yourself in that space. You haven't really made a decision. Your decision to be successful, to have $1 million a year, your decision to achieve any goal, to make it to any marker, means that run, walk, or crawl, you're crossing that finish line, period. And that was always my motto when I started marathon running, was like, run, walk, or crawl, I am crossing the finish line regardless. I don't care if I'm hobbling, like I'm crossing that. So when you make a decision, most people suck at decision making because they make decisions. They would like to have $1 million a year. They'd really like to. I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it? Oh, and then they want to. They're like, I want to, but I tried to do it. I tried to do it last year, didn't achieve it. Okay, well, you didn't actually make a decision then. So if you make a decision is a fully embodied commitment that run, walk, or crawl, you're crossing that finish line toward what it is that you say you want to do. Now, of course, we want to make sure that that thing that you want to do is actually in alignment with who you are. It's in alignment with your purpose. Like I had made the decision to have $1 million a year years ago, but I wasn't honestly personally developed enough to be able to do that. I was struggling with being a first-time mom, and my son was having some complications, and like I was struggling with doing that and simultaneously growing my business. my mindset wasn't in the place to be in the level of decisiveness and personal responsibility to maintain and sustain $1 million business. So being able to it comes down to an awareness of where you are personally. Are you able to accept the level of responsibility that's going to come with the decision? And I like to always correlate it to, the decision to become a parent. Like, once that baby's out, like, for the most part, that's a decision. Like, there's going to be late nights. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be challenges. But the decision to be a parent, ultimately, that child is staying with you. So it's a fully embodied, yes, I'm doing this. Yes, there may be some struggle. There probably will be. Yes, this is all evolving me. Yes, I'm choosing to go through this. And I like to think of, once you make any decision, like any fully embodied, yes, this is happening, this is already done, it is what it is decision. What happens is you're going to face the challenges, the struggles, and the foibles and the F-ups that actually create you. They are your initiation to becoming the person who's able to handle the level of responsibility that comes with that decision. So it's the challenges and struggles are a requirement, and they're a part of the journey. So being able to look at what it doesn't mean that struggle doesn't mean suffering but it does mean facing a challenge head on, not avoiding the problem. Maybe it's, the problem that you're avoiding or the struggle that you're avoiding is your own success. I've seen that many times. Maybe the problem or the struggle that you're avoiding is your fear of visibility. And if you're going for your $1 million year, you probably got to be a little bit more visible. Got to be up in people's inboxes and on social media and on podcasts. So it's a level of visibility that's also required. It's a level of your presence. How do you show up for yourself on a daily basis? Are you fully committed? Like, to be able to manifest the home that I have, like, that took a full body decision and commitment from not only myself, but my whole family, that we were going for this house. We were going to have it happen. It was happening, period. And we did the work to sell my childhood home, to put the steps and process to get our finances in place to be able to sustain this life. But it had to come from a full body decision. And if you look at where you're lacking in the areas that you're lacking success, it typically comes down to the lack of decision making.
Wow. Whew. Like I said, I'm just writing away, Kimberly, writing away. Thank you so much. I hope my audience gets the benefit of this, because I know I am. I got some changes to do.
Well, and that's the power of podcasts and the power of coaching, Daniel, is it's my job as a coach to help my clients make better, faster, more aligned decisions. And like, to be able to understand how your body makes decisions, because your body is going to, like I said, the subconscious mind rules your body. It's beating your heart, it's breathing your lungs right now, and you're not even thinking about it. So because of that, to understand how your body makes full-bodied yes decisions. Like, I know for me that when I'm not fully embodied in a decision, stays stuck in my throat. And I kind of get a little choked up on it. And there's something that I probably have to digest and swallow. Maybe it's my own power. Maybe it's, some fears and limitations that I just need to like get out of me. Maybe it's something else. But I know that once it settles into my solar plexus, that's a whole full-bodied hell yes decision. This is happening.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now, we talked about where you've been at. I want to talk about where you're headed. And I know there's going to be updates to crownyourself.com in the coming months. What should folks be looking out for in 2023 coming from Kimberly Spencer?
Well, this year we are very excited to be expanding our agency to really help more service-based entrepreneurs. That launched last year, and we had our beta launch. I learned a lot. and there was a lot of growth. And because of that, my team and I were very excited to support clients in getting them booked on more podcasts that are strategically aligned. And then for Crown Yourself, we are just simplifying. we are really focusing on serving the leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners who are at a certain level and they want to cross that $1 million mark, and they want to scale, and they want to create a bigger impact. And that's where we shine, is really in leading that transformation of conscious entrepreneurship.
Love that. Love that. Well, folks, if you haven't already, go to crownyourself.com. Kimberly, thank you again so much for coming on the RNG radio show. Really appreciate having you here. What's one quote or a piece of advice we can leave these ladies and gentlemen with?
Take full ownership for where you're at, because ownership and acceptance doesn't mean that you have to stay there, but you do need to accept where you're at emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, in order to move. Otherwise, you're not moving from a starting line. You're moving from a should, and should is not actually at a starting line. So if you accept that you're at the starting line, or if you're at mile 20 or at mile 16, wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, you need to accept first where you're at, and then take ownership of what are the things that have gotten you there, good and bad, and what are the beliefs, the habits, and truly ask yourself, if the future you called you in for a meeting, and this future you had the money that you want, the business that you want, the team support that you want, the full holistic life, that level of freedom that you desire, she or he has got it all. And she or he calls you into a meeting, and you sit down, and that future you asks you a simple question. Would that future you fire you for the quality and quantity of your current output? Because if you can look at that question and remove your own judgment and ego, and look at how your output is contributing to you becoming that future you, is it at the quantity and quality of level that future you needs?
Wow.
And then take ownership of that. And does she need to fire you? Or do you need a little mentorship and a little guidance? And then where can you find that? Sometimes you can definitely always find that within yourself. If you are self-aware enough to ask the questions, you can find that with a coach. You can find that with mastermind or other entrepreneurs around you who are aspiring to a different level. But choose to get reflection and perspective, because it is in your perspective that when you can acknowledge the incongruencies of your life, that is the degree to which you can evolve and grow.
Wow. Well, Kimberly, thank you again so much. I've definitely been touched. I've definitely been inspired all over again, just with the future of my businesses. So just really an honor having you here. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. So thank you. Thank
you so much. I truly appreciate it, Daniel. I'm so honored to be here, and I am just so excited for what you're doing. I mean, as a woman, the fact that only 2% of women ever hit the $1 million mark is abhorrent to me.
Yeah.
And I haven't coached a lot of women. I see a lot of the reasons why. But I love that your job is to create 1 million millionaires, and being able to help them get to that level and just see that growth. Because I do believe that when more money gets in the hands of more conscious, good-hearted entrepreneurs, that is how we change this world.
Yeah. Because there's that want and that I should, but that decision, once they do have all the tools they need, including $1 million, it's going to push them. So, folks, if you haven't already, go check out crownyourself.com. Kimberly, I'm definitely looking to have you come back on the show later in time so we could talk more about what you're doing. But thank you again for being here today with me.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been an honor.
Thank you for tuning in to the RNG Radio Show. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes and future content. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at danielumstead.com. Stay blessed, my fellow millionaires.